how about the Florida fiasco? And yeah, this was a fiasco. So Jaden Rashada, 5-star quarterback, good player. Some places had him as a 4-star. He was the number 56 overall recruit. Huge story. Basically was promised an NIL deal or package from Florida that was in the, wait for it, $13 million range. $13 million of NIL. Okay. Hadn't stepped foot on the campus. All right. So that's the deal. Now, turns out like something goes south in the deal, and apparently the collective is basically saying like, we can't do it. They send a notice of termination. And so now he's like, well, I want out of my letter of intent. I'm sorry I'm laughing because this sounds so crazy, because it is. It is. And first of all, this is not Jaden Rashada's fault. This is not his fault whatsoever. And I'm not even going to sit here and like hammer away at Florida. Okay, like this isn't necessarily Florida's fault either. Let's run through this. Let's try to get our arms around this. This is a mess born out of a vacuum. Okay, that vacuum right now is allowing a lot of things to take place. And here's what's taking place, and it's a process. Okay, so the vacuum that, well, let's face it, the NCAA created by not putting parameters around NIL, by then going in there and just like opening the doors to the transfer portal while opening the doors to NIL with no parameters, without fixing the calendar. So now all of a sudden, the NCAA has created this scenario where every school has to make a choice. And here's the process that takes place. Number one is that as a university, a program more specifically, an athletic department, you got to decide whether you're going to play ball or not. You have to decide. I've given this analogy before, but we are at a point, an evolution of the sport, a point, an inflection point in the sport where, like the year 2000 to 2005, 2008, that was an arms race, and you were either in or you were not. You played ball or you didn't. And we saw teams get passed by that were historically great teams that didn't get involved in the arms race. They didn't start hiring extra staff people. They didn't invest in their building. They didn't invest in their program overall. The things like size of coaching contracts, size of assistant coaching contracts, and length of contracts. All these different investments that were made. There was an arms race. Some people played in that game and got much better, and other people didn't, and they relied on their brand and they got passed. All right? We don't have to go over it much more than that. You kind of know where that's at. We're at another inflection point. You got to decide as a school, as a program, as an athletic department, whether you want to play ball or not in the NIL space. And guess what? If you don't, you will lose. You will lose. What was that? Iron Man 2 or 3? Or you will lose. They're going to lose. They've got no choice but to evolve and to be aggressive. Okay, so once you're at that point, now what do? Well, in a normal society, if you will, in a normal organization, there would be a blueprint like there was with the arms race. Okay, you can do these things. You can hire these amount of people. You can do these types of contracts. And you can do that. And there's a roadmap, there's a blueprint, and there are parameters around what you can do. But this is a total vacuum. So now there's no roadmap. And so without a roadmap, schools are trying to be both aggressive and cautious all at the same time. Okay, so we want to play ball, but we don't really want to be totally involved with it. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make a collective because it's technically legal to make a collective, but we don't really want to be involved with it. So guess who gets to be involved with it? People that aren't involved in the program. All right, so they can be involved in the program, but not on an official basis. And so you get these ancillary characters that don't understand the rules, the regulations, the whatever is going on in college football. They just know we want to be aggressive and we want to play ball. And they're dealing in an irrational market. There's no marketplace for this thing. Jaden Rashada should never get offered a $13 million NIL deal. He hasn't, one, taken a snap, and number two, he's not even the top quarterback in the class. Nothing against him, but that's a totally irrational market. Somebody at Florida pops off, runs their mouth, and says, we got to steal that kid from Miami. I hear he's getting $9 million down there, so let's offer him 13. And guess what? Your mouth writes checks that your actual checkbook can't cover. And that seems to be what's happening. But it all stems from the process that evolved into a vacuum. See, that the biggest problem is not what happened at Florida, it's that it was allowed to happen at Florida. Let's just back up for one more little moment, okay? You're telling me that the NCAA is going to throw a fit and a notice of allegations because Jim Harbaugh had contact with a recruit or a prospective student athlete during the COVID dead period, and an analyst possibly coached a player when he shouldn't have, and they're under full investigation. But down in Florida, a player, a student athlete, can get promised $13 million from someone that's not really part of the program. That deal can fall apart to the point where that player wants out of Florida and the NCAA's got nothing to say about it. Nothing. We're good. Working perfectly, guys. Boy, I'm glad we made that NIL legal. Aren't you, Fred? Yeah, sure am, Jimmy. What? What's happening? What's happening? Can the adults enter the room, please, at some point? At some point. We've got, I mean, poor Jaden Rashada, where's he going to play? I don't know. Is he ever going to make his $13 million back? I've got no idea. Not his fault. Not even really Florida's fault. You know, was it shady of maybe their collective and some people? Yeah, probably, okay? Was there some fault somewhere along the lines? Yes. Where was the ultimate fault? The ultimate fault lays at the feet of the people that created the vacuum in the first place. You create a vacuum, this process is going to happen. And yet that same group that created this vacuum and this mess at Florida wants to get involved at Michigan for impermissible contact during the COVID dead period? Pound sand. Get out of my life. At some point, these programs are going to just say to themselves, we don't want anything to do with the NCAA. They've created our problems. Then they create more problems with their oversight into areas that we don't want them in the oversight business of. So they're going to leave. They're going to leave. What makes Michigan or any other school want to stay a member of the NCAA? And you could maybe say, you can argue like, well, they want to be a part of the NCAA basketball tournament. I'll just tell you this right now. Major college football schools, the Power 5 schools, the Autonomous 5 schools, they could end the NCAA basketball tournament tomorrow, by just saying, we don't want any part of the NCAA. You created all of our problems, both in oversight and without oversight. And because of that, we want no part of you. And the NCAA basketball tournament, as you know it and as I know it, would cease to exist. And that might come true in the next 10, 15 years. If I was a betting man, I would bet money that the NCAA basketball tournament, as we know it, will not be the same because of what I'm talking to you about. Okay, you can't lay the hammer on these things that are trivial and yet wash your hands of a situation where there's millions of dollars at stake and possibly fraudulent deals. And you got nothing to say about that? Give me a break. Give me a break.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.